This episode of the Baddest Ballers podcast is brought to you by Spaceship Apparel. Gear so fresh, it's out of this world. SpaceshipApparel.com. All right, this is Clint with another episode of Baddest Ballers. I have a special guest with me, Jenny Lu. Jenny is a fellow contributor at HoopsHabit from Fansided. Jenny, you want to go ahead and give us just a quick bit of background info on yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I am currently a college student at Tufts University. I did a internship at SF Sports, and now I'm currently contributing for Hoops Habit, mainly focusing on the Warriors.
Okay. Now you said you did an internship where?
SF Sports. It's
Oh, SF Sports.
a smaller sports website.
Oh, gotcha. And what was that like?
It was really cool. It was actually what sparked my sort of interest to go into sports media and start writing more. Although when I was writing there, it wasn't focused on any one sport in particular, and it was very flexible. So at Hoops
Mhm.
Habit, there's a lot more structure, and I'm pretty glad for that. And I get to focus on one team.
Okay, so you prefer to focus on one team and that structure rather than uh, the additional flexibility.
Yeah, normally I would say so, although right now, since the Warriors are obviously not in the bubble or in the playoffs, it's been a bit harder to get material and content to write for, but normally I would say I prefer that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that can't be. Even though I did manage to write a piece about the Warriors myself not too long ago, but yeah, I imagine that's probably not the easiest thing. Now, are
Yeah.
you also just is that also your team of choice? Are you like a hardcore Warriors fan, or is there another team that you root
Um,
for?
yeah, I definitely love the Warriors. I'm actually from Boston, so obviously I love the Celtics.
Mm,
Um, yeah, Celtics, Warriors, sort of my main teams. There are obviously other teams that I like as well, but I find that like a lot of fans, I also focus a lot on individuals in the NBA rather than teams.
right. Yeah. Okay. So who's your favorite player at the moment, or top five, maybe if you don't
Oh,
have one?
right now for sure, looking at in the bubble, definitely Luca.
Yes, I was actually going to ask you about Luka because I saw you had a few tweets about him. So I was like, I figured he may have been your favorite player, or maybe you were just impressed with what you're seeing at the moment. I wasn't too sure, but yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
something you tweeted about him a few times. He's definitely really impressive. Do you have any thoughts on him going forward? Like, what do you think his projection is like?
I think he's looking really good. I think the Mavs started a bit slow under his lead. Well, I mean, he was already carrying the team anyways in the bubble,
Right,
but they did start a bit slow. But now that they're really picking up their rhythm and he's getting into sort of like game mode, I think they look really good. And if they just keep it up, then um, I think things are gonna look up for them. And one thing is that I did see that they sort of lose leads a lot in the beginning because they were never like down by a lot. They were always up and then they lose their lead at the end. So I think
right.
if the team focuses on more closure at the end and sort of not losing their lead and keeping up the game speed, then I think yeah, that's really a key to their success right now.
Now, the last person I had on my podcast, they were making the point that well, I always try to get predictions at the end of the podcast from people, which I'll do with you as well. But their prediction was Luca for most improved player. But do you agree with that, or
I do agree with that. Well, so previously, I did think that Bam would win, although I still do think that Bam would win overall.
Mhm.
Um, do you remember that little like staff voting that we had at Hoops Habit?
Yes,
Yeah, so on that forum, I did put that Bam would win. Um, and they're only looking at results from the regular season, right? Not anything from the bubble.
right, yeah.
Yeah, so on that basis, I do still think that Bam will win most improved. Although now, obviously, looking at Luca, like I do think he is truly like the most improved player.
Even considering that he was already really good last year, obviously.
Yeah, that's the thing. He was really good last year, and he's always been sort of a star, which is
Right.
why I didn't put him as most improved. But his success right now is unmatched.
It's scary to think that he's only in his second year and already making such huge leaps and bounds. And still, and that's after pretty much coming to league as a star, pretty much. His trajectory is pretty unmatched, I think. I'm not
I
saying I
know
think he'll be the greatest ever, but
it's
you don't,
insane.
you
I
don't.
think we have to watch out for him.
Now, how did you get into basketball?
Um, I don't know. It sort of just came. I think I always liked basketball since like high school. And with my sports internship, that's really sort of what launched me into it because even though I was still writing about other sports like football, I found myself gravitating towards the NBA and focusing on NBA articles. And so after my internship, I sort of just decided that that's what I want to do. That's what I want to write about, and ultimately, that's probably what I want to go into in the future. Obviously, we all do, but it's a dream.
Right. Oh, actually, I saw some old work of yours on the internet where you actually listed your interests and you had boxing on there. Was boxing at one point your preferred sport, or might it still be
Oh,
on some level?
that is so interesting. Where did you find that?
Oh, I have my on display. Actually, um, it was Cog magazine.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, so boxing was an interest of mine. I think one summer, like a few summers ago, I did a little like boxing boot camp where I like trained with like a former pro boxer in China.
Really?
Yeah, so that was super cool and really like really just physically and mentally like very hard and tough. But I really enjoyed it. But like I think I was just too scared to like actually go into matches, so I sort of gave
Right.
that up.
I mean, that sounds like a very interesting experience. So, have you ever actually played basketball as well, or just
No,
watched it?
so I never played on a team or anything. Obviously, now that I'm writing about it, it made me want to pick it up. So I go to the park a lot. I have a hoop in my backyard,
Nice.
and I got to tell you, I'm not that bad. I'm pretty good actually.
Oh, really? All right, I have to challenge you for a one-on-one sometime.
Yeah, I
um,
mean, you'll probably have the height advantage, but I can shoot.
I mean, that's a very valuable asset in basketball.
Yeah, definitely. I've had an interesting experience with sports. I used to row crew.
So you used to what?
I used to row crew.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I would say that's probably the physically like that's the hardest thing I've ever done.
I would imagine for sure. Now, actually, I have to ask, 'cause I don't know if I'm the only one that experiences this, particularly with since I've started contributing to Hoops Habit. Have uh, like is there like a specific process that you follow when you're trying to write a piece? And then do you feel like do you go through long stretches of like I really have no idea what I'm going to write about next?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm always in that stretch, or it always feels like it. Um, Obviously, right now it's harder, and I think that if they were still playing, it would be a lot easier to write. But even then, it's still hard to come up with topics. I draw a lot. Obviously, I feel like I'm more stats based. Like
I'm the same
lots of
way.
my yeah, lots of my pieces are more analytical, but I do try to focus on star players. Like I love writing about Steph and Clay. And really I just like to see like what's going on. And I mean, Hoops Habit I don't know if is the right place for this, but I do really like writing pieces that are like unique from my perspective. So like from a female in sports and stuff like
Right.
that.
Oh, interesting. Now, I saw that you posted not too long ago that you were trying the whole virtual fan thing. What was that like?
Oh yeah, so I was a virtual fan for the Pelicans.
Nice.
And that was really cool. It was a really fun experience because I mean, I'm sure you've seen the virtual fans on the
I
screen.
have.
Yeah.
It's
So
very interesting.
I as soon as I saw that there were going to be virtual fans, I knew that I wanted to be one. Um
Your whole life led up to
and
that moment.
yeah, pretty much. And so I searched the internet like high and low for how I can become a virtual fan. And and I found that the Pelicans had like an open virtual fan thing because a lot of the teams only open it up to season ticket holders. Um, so I like signed up for it, and it's actually really interesting because I mean I'm gonna sound like kind of fraud, but I wasn't a big Pelicans fan. Although
Shame.
I I obviously I love Zion and I am looking out for Lonzo. I think he has a lot of potential. But the virtual
Mm,
fans experience was so cool and interesting that like it made me want to be a Pelicans fan. Like they had lots of
really?
energy. We had like a section leader and a cheerleader from the or a dancer from like the Pelicans dance squad came in and taught us like a few cheers. So that was super cool.
Wait, so okay, so I'm guessing it's not anything that you have to pay for, right? You sign up for it and you get chosen. Is that am I understanding that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, basically. So you don't have to pay. As long as they have a spot for you, you can be there. And yeah, they like go through, you know, like the logistics. Like, I do think that it was a bit complicated in terms of like technology. Like, I can see why, like, sometimes before I was on the virtual fans, I would look up and be like, oh, why aren't the virtual fans like selling out, right? That I feel like
Right.
all the seats should be filled because it's virtual. But I like a lot of people just leave or can't figure it out because of like the technology part. And obviously it's like unprecedented, so none of us have ever done anything like this, but I don't know, it's just interesting.
So it's not just like you sitting in front of your camera. It's more to it than that.
It is, but it goes through Microsoft Teams. So
Gotcha.
I don't think any of us has experience with Microsoft Teams, right? Like I had to download it. I had to figure out like how to get an
Gotcha.
account and
Yeah,
then
no one
like
uses
log
that.
in. Right, exactly.
Well, since you're a semi bandwagon Pelicans fan now, what what do you think of Lonzo's potential going? Like it just seems like he's all over the place. One minute it seems like, oh no, he definitely has so much potential. He's going to
Right.
be maybe even a star in this league, and then the next is like he's falling apart. Like I don't know. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what to
I
make of him at
mean,
this point.
no, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think when he came into the league, it was pretty disappointing. And then he was going up from there, like rising. He sort of got rid of his father, and I sort of think that was like one of the bad influences in his life. And
Definitely.
I saw him sort of improving and having more potential. I think I was looking forward to his performance in the bubble, honestly. And yeah, it's been disappointing. He's been shooting really poorly,
I know,
and
shamefully.
it. I think I think it's experience. You know, like I think obviously none of them have experience with the bubble, and like sort of this lab like environment, and it's sort of all very new. But I think it might be a little bit more jarring for him than it is for others.
I
Although I
just
might be just making excuses for him at this point, but I do seriously think that he has potential.
Oh no, he definitely has potential. That I
Yeah,
think that goes without saying. It's just a matter of if he can even tap into it. It seems like
right. And I think next year if we were to see if he will live up to the potential, I think next year would be the year to see.
100%, especially with playing alongside Zion. I think you have to be able to take advantage of that, I would think.
Right, exactly.
What are your
And yeah, I
thoughts on?
mean,
Go ahead. No, sorry.
oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, Greg. No, I was just gonna remark on like how disappointing the Pelicans has been because like I feel like the NBA made up this whole system of the eighth seed thing just for Zion, right? Because
Exactly.
fans want to see Zion.
Exactly. Oh my God, it's so disappointing.
Yeah, but he's been on like minutes restrictions and he's not in half the games. Like he wasn't in the game that he wasn't playing in the game that I was a virtual fan of. And
Oh, of
so,
course.
yeah, it's been a dud really.
Do you think we're ever just going to be able to enjoy Zion like a regular player where he just comes in and he plays 35, 38 minutes and it's not a big deal, like on a
I
semi-regular
mean,
basis? It seems like he requires so much managing
yeah.
right now.
Right. It seems like he's very high maintenance. But I hope so, right? Like that's the whole point of a star player is to see them play. But obviously he's very injury prone. That's the main concern.
Right.
Because he's a big guy.
Yes, definitely. I mean, and almost counterintuitively, you almost, for some reason, expect like um, someone so big and strapping to be less injury prone, but that's just not really how it works with a sport like basketball, where you're running and you're jumping and you're moving laterally.
Right,
It actually work,
especially him.
yeah,
Like
against them.
most of his game is dependent on his athleticism and his dunking capabilities and like sort of dominating in the paint, and that's really where players get hurt, I think.
I feel like he already looks less explosive than he did in college. Do you agree with that, or do you think maybe that's just my imagination?
um no, I agree, but I do think that is like sort of a result of him being restricted.
Gotcha. So how have you felt about bubble basketball so far, just compared to the regular product?
Oh my God, it's been so interesting, right? I think that I had some concerns going into it, but I mean, all my concerns are like disappearing away. Like one concern I had was about obviously coronavirus, COVID-19. And I think they've done a really good job at maintaining like player safety, and they've all tested negative for like the second or third time in a row, I think. Um, and they've just been really good at like that aspect. And then in terms of like the quality of basketball itself, I think I think we can all agree that it's been really high quality without the worst teams in the league.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
And for some reason, TJ Warren is a superstar now. I'm still trying to figure out. Maybe the bubble
Yeah.
was made for him specifically. I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, he wasn't a bad player before. Like I feel like a lot of fans make him out to be sort of like he was bad before and now he's
Oh no.
amazing. But
Oh no, no, he
he was a
wasn't.
good player.
For
He
sure.
just played for a semi bad team that no one really noticed. Well, not like bad, but sort of just under the radar.
Do you think that TJ is somehow reaching his full potential right now, or is this? Do you suspect it's more just like a hot streak of sorts?
I mean, I have no idea, right? We thought maybe the first game where went off and scored like 51 points or something, that was like his one and done, but
Mhm.
he's been consistently hot, although not against the Heat on his last game, because I sort of think he was sort of like they sort of poured cold water on him because he and Jimmy Butler has beef. But
Right.
it could be a number of factors. I mean, I don't really know what is really holding him back in regular seasons. Maybe it's the fans, maybe it's being on the road. Like for these players, I really don't know what their weaknesses are. So it could be a number of those factors.
Right. Could just be like another flash in the pan, Linsanity moment all over again. Even though, to
Yeah.
be fair, for some reason, I always felt like, and I could be in the minority here, but I've always felt like Jeremy Lin could have sustained a high level of play.
Oh,
Given
absolutely.
the right opportunity again.
Dude, Jeremy Lin is actually like my trigger word. Like I get
Oh,
really defensive over Jeremy Lin.
really? Tell me about it, please.
I mean, first of all, I'm an Asian American, so
Right.
I do relate to him on some level, and I loved seeing someone that looked like me play in the NBA.
Of course.
I think that he had so much potential that they just didn't tap into, right? Because one, I'm not trying to slander any player, but I think one particular player on his team,
Carmelo Anthony.
yep, one particular player didn't really enjoy the stardom that Jeremy Lin was finding, and
Right.
sort of the jealousy sort of put like a little dapper on Jeremy Lin's moment. So I do think that given the chance, he could still play in the NBA. I even think now he could still play in the NBA. And
I
it was
know, it's
really
crazy to me that he's not
disappointing
even in
and
the league
sad.
anymore.
Yeah, it was so sad to see him, go overseas.
Why do you think no one's been able to capitalize on his talents anywhere else?
I don't know. I think, Carmelo Anthony was obviously one reason, and I think he was a big reason. But I think he could have been picked up by like a bad team, and he could have been like an average to above average player. And I really don't know why coaches or teams didn't consider him. Is it the race? I don't know. That is one question and one conversation that I've heard.
Right. I mean, he did hop around a bit after New York, but
Mm-hmm.
it didn't seem like he was quite the right fit anywhere, and he just didn't.
Yeah.
He just
I mean, I
wasn't.
do think that everyone thought he wasn't quite the same after the injuries.
I mean, there could be some of that. There could be some of that too. I just find it hard to believe that he was that good for that period of time in New York and just completely he's completely lost all of that. I mean,
Right.
technically it's possible, but it always struck me as strange.
Right. It was very strange. And yeah, you're right. He was with a lot of teams. But I'm glad that his career in the NBA at least ended with a championship. He is a champion.
I keep forgetting that. You're absolutely right.
We have to put some respect on his name.
That's very true. NBA champion Jeremy Lin.
That's right. And you can't say the same for Carmelo Anthony right now. So who's really winning, right?
Oh, poor Melo. the modern Charles Barkley up here.
Although speaking of Melo, I mean, I think he has found sort of success in being a role player on the Blazers. It's been interesting seeing him doing that.
Yeah, I think that year out of the league where he pretty much was not even called by any team whatsoever, just really was probably a sobering wake up call for him.
Yeah,
Um,
no, for sure.
because yeah, I mean, he literally went from laughing about coming off the bench to, I mean,
Yeah,
it is sad to see when because it happens to most star players when they're a superstar at one point, then they're a star, and then they're not really a star anymore, but they still think they're a star. And like that
right.
adjustment period, it's almost cringe. Like I feel bad for them. Like, oh, you still think you're a superstar, but you're not.
Yeah. I mean, he's still in the conversation. I think I'm glad he's, humbled himself a bit, and it's good to see him be a good teammate now.
Right, because he's still definitely an above average player. He definitely still has a lot to
Right.
contribute.
Yeah.
Um, it just doesn't make sense to be the go-to guy if you're trying to win on a consistent basis.
Yeah,
He's,
for
he's,
sure.
he's definitely not a number one option anymore.
Yeah.
Now I know this will come across as a strange question, and I'm curious because I also saw here that you are a poet.
Yes, although not so much anymore, but
So,
previously definitely a big poet.
so have you ever written a basketball related poem?
That has never crossed my mind. I
Never
feel like,
crossed your mind?
um, I
Wouldn't
mean,
that be quite the
obviously,
literary challenge?
when I was writing poetry, and if you saw some of my work, they were all from sort of a few years ago.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, at the time, I just wasn't really a basketball fan, so that wasn't an inspiration. But now it would definitely be an inspiration. I mean, that's pretty much all I think about, right? I sit in front of my TV and I watch like 6 hours of basketball a day.
Now you said you're at Tufts University right now.
Incoming at Tufts, yeah. I took a gap year last year, but I would
Oh,
be going
gotcha.
into Tufts. Yeah.
Oh, you'll be starting in this fall.
Yeah.
So is your major related to journalism or writing at all?
So I'm going in undecided because as a liberal arts student, everyone has to go in undecided. But
Gotcha.
I definitely want to go into this field. They don't have a specific journalism major,
Oh,
um, but if I were to pursue journalism, I would probably major in like English.
okay. Now, I know you're slightly younger than myself, but
Hmm.
do you have any favorite players from previous eras?
Previous eras, I mean, obviously Kobe. Like, I think if anyone, it would be Kobe, because I mean, for obvious reasons, and it was very sad to see him go. But
I
I
know.
also watched The Last Dance, and that was very enlightening. Big fan of Jordan as a player, not so much as a person.
Agreed.
Um, love Scottie Pippen.
And well, as far as Jordan, glad you brought that up. Jordan, LeBron, is that much of a debate for you? Or is that clear in your mind?
It's tough. It's tough because if you just look at success, right? Jordan has more rings, and that's really what like I feel like might be fueling LeBron and also sort of what's keeping Jordan in the conversation. Like I feel like um if LeBron wins another ring, I think people would start taking him more seriously and like seriously start comparing him to Michael Jordan. Because I do think that LeBron is playing in a harder era of basketball, which I feel like
I think
people
so
don't
too.
really take into account sometimes.
Right.
But just looking at rings, obviously you would say that Jordan is better because he won more championships.
Is for you personally, is rings a high consideration considering the greatest?
For me personally, no. Um, but obviously I feel more emotional ties to LeBron because
Right, obviously.
I watch him play every day, and I didn't watch Jordan. I didn't grow up in that era, so obviously I understand what he meant to those people. And I think part of people's rationale of him being the GOAT isn't just winning, right? That's a huge part of it. But I think I always hear that Jordan was a much better leader. Um, he was just way more aggressive and like all he cared about was winning, but also that he was a leader on the court, off the court, and he was like a huge global phenomenon, which I don't think LeBron could be in that like it wouldn't be on the same level, right? Because Jordan revolutionized sort of the game and like the image of basketball with like the Jordan shoes, and it took him overseas. Like he's an international superstar. I don't think LeBron has that same sort of like cultural cultural phenomenon thing around him.
Interesting. I actually think that is. I agree. I think that's a lot of what colors that conversation. Um,
Right.
I'm also just. Even though I'm a lot older than you, I'm still also slightly too young to have really seen Jordan play, so I probably have a bias as well.
Mhm.
Seeing Kobe and LeBron play. Kobe's not in the conversation though. But I do think that because of the iconic brand that Jordan is, I think it's a lot closer than Jordan diehards give it credit for. Like I even though I personally give the edge to LeBron, and I know I'm
Mhm.
in the minority there,
Yeah.
I think it's close enough that I understand that if someone says Jordan, but it bothers me when someone says it's Jordan, it's not even close. I'm like, that's definitely not true. It's
Yeah,
definitely
that's
really close. Like
yeah, no way.
you can make a good argument for either case.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so back to the season.
Hmm.
Your predictions: MVP, most improved player, defensive player, sixth man of the year.
All right. MVP, I think Giannis. Um, love LeBron, but I think Giannis is carrying his. I mean, they're both carrying his team, but I think it's Giannis's year to be MVP again.
What's
What do
the
you think?
biggest argument? Oh, I agree. I don't even think it's close. I definitely agree with you that it's Giannis. But
I
what do
mean,
you personally think is the biggest argument against LeBron for MVP this year?
for me, it's the stats.
Right. Um, yeah, like I said, it's not even really close when you like the more you look into it, especially when you look into more of the advanced analytics. It's not really close. I almost feel like people just sort of want LeBron to have another MVP because maybe he was gypped potentially in the past, but it really
Yeah.
wouldn't. Yeah,
I mean, if I were to play devil's advocate, I would say that Giannis is playing in a easier conference, like the East compared to the
that is
West.
true. That is true. That's a legitimate point.
Yeah, but I
Um,
do still think Giannis.
I do think so too. I think his and just even Giannis is another guy whose trajectory is also pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, most improved player. Well, I think you already said you did say Luca, right?
Um, I mean, I would change my mind now and say Luca, but I do think that Bam Adebayo is going to win it.
Oh, you think Bam is actually going to win? That's your
Yes,
prediction. But
right.
you would, if you had your way, you would pick Luca.
Yes.
Ah, that's a good distinction. Also, is there someone that you would pick for MVP other than Giannis?
No, I would have to give him the respect and say Giannis.
Gotcha. Fair enough. What about defensive player of the year?
Um, for me, it's Rudy Gobert, but I
Ooh,
don't. Do you agree with me? What do you think?
slightly less popular choice these days. I think that's a closer race, and I think well, in terms of actual prediction, I think you're probably right that Rudy Gobert will actually win. I think you can make a slightly better case for Giannis, but I don't think they're going to give Giannis MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
which I think is a little silly. It's okay if he's deserving. It's okay to give a guy more than one award. I don't think anything's wrong with that. But I feel like there's a bit of a taboo against that.
Yeah, for sure. I actually don't really know sort of like what's the whole process behind like how they choose it.
So it's really just members of the media voting. So
Hmm.
maybe one day you'll be voting on the MVP. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
really
would be
just
super cool.
yeah, it's just select members of the media. And and that's the problem too is that there is no specific criteria that they are required to follow. So
Hmm.
it's a little all over the place.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on sixth man of the year?
Sixth man of the year. I mean, it would be between Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. And for that one is pretty close for me. Previously, I thought Lou Williams, but now I feel like it might be closer than I think.
Hmm. What's swaying you?
I'm not sure. I think I just thought more about it, and I was like, maybe Montrezl Harrell has been putting up better numbers than Lou Williams this season, or am I tripping?
No, no, I'm actually tending to agree. I think Montrezl Harrell provides almost the same value in offense and definitely more value in defense. So when you take that into consideration, it, it's a little clearer, I think.
Yeah.
Even though Lou Williams is a very exciting spark plug off the bench for sure. Now, what about winning it all this year? Who would you like to win it all, and who do you think will win it all?
All right, who I'd like to win it all is LeBron. I would like to see the Lakers win.
Same.
Because I think, I think this is his chance to win it. This is his year, right?
This might be his last best chance, honestly.
It's his 17th year in the league. And that's not saying that he's not going to continue to be good and great, which I think he will. But I do think he will be good and, one of the best players, but I don't know if he will have the potential to win again.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah,
I personally am scared that he's going to fall off a cliff next year, but I hope I'm wrong. But anyway,
I hope you're wrong too.
Yeah. So who do you think will most likely win it all? Wish list aside.
I mean, it's tough. If we're looking at, I mean, for me right now, it would be between the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Raptors. Or no, well, obviously, I mean Giannis. But
okay, the Bucks.
If we're looking at besides Lakers and like the Bucks, then I would say the Clippers have a really good chance at winning it all.
Wait, okay, so did you just choose the 4 best teams in the NBA?
No, I mean I truly think so I didn't have the Raptors in the conversation, but looking at how they're playing right now,
I think they're definitely
I feel like they're up there for me.
Right.
Just because they have been consistently good in the bubble, besides that one team where they were completely discombobulated against Boston. But other than that, they've been one of the most consistent teams in the bubble. And just sort of the team dynamic is incredible, I feel like, on the Raptors. And I've heard a lot of commentators say that they think the Raptors are the best team in the East right now, like above the Bucks.
So you do you think the Raptors has the best chance to win it all right now?
No. I would still have to say either the Lakers or the Clippers.
And if you had to choose one, feet to the fire.
If I had to choose,
yeah.
I mean, I'm biased, but I have hope in the Lakers.
Oh man!
I know they've been playing badly.
They've been playing so badly. It's depressing.
I think that, first of all, I think it's because they fall apart without LeBron's leadership.
Right.
And it doesn't help that, he hasn't been shooting well and playing well himself. But I think he's getting better, like in the previous 2 games that I've seen him. He's been putting up more numbers because he started off pretty poorly for him.
Yeah, for sure.
He started off with 16 points against the Clippers and then 20 points, 22. So he's slowly getting up there, and now he's, averaging a lot higher. But I think it's just hard for him. Like, we heard him say that the bubble environment has been hard for him to adjust to, no family, no wife. So
I can imagine.
I can tell that it's taking a toll on him more than it is on other players. He is a family guy. And secondly, I think he's a player that draws a lot of energy from fans in the crowd.
That's I think you're definitely onto something there, which is partly why I think you're being. I mean, as a Lakers fan and a LeBron fan, I appreciate your optimism about them potentially winning everything. But unfortunately, I think the Terminator, aka Kawhi, and squad might just be too much. They're definitely deeper.
No, they have a deep bench, and I'm not I mean, I'm not arguing with you. I know they're a really good team, and they have a really good chance at winning it all. But I feel like if LeBron gets hot, I don't know what could stop him. But he has to get hot first.
I mean, and the Lakers have beaten them the last couple times they've played too,
Yeah.
which bodes well. He seems to be extra motivated when he plays the Clippers.
Yeah. Again, like he said, he's just not in the mindset yet, right? The playoffs mindset.
That could
So
be it, exactly. Because playoff LeBron is a real thing.
Yeah, it is a real thing. So we need him to get there.
Absolutely. All right. So I just had before I let you go, quick. Do you have a YouTube channel? Or
I do not have a YouTube channel.
you should, absolutely. I think you definitely have a lot of interesting perspectives that would be valuable for you to put out there. Just my 2 cents, but I definitely enjoyed our conversation. Did you have anything to plug, or do you want to tell people where to find you or anything?
Oh no, I don't want to plug anything. They can find me on HoopsHabit. I think if you just search up my name on Google, you can find everything I've ever written. So
Right. I can
it's an
attest to
easy
that.
find. Yeah. You've been stalking me.
No. Please don't say that.
I do have a Twitter now. I actually just made the Twitter. Jenny Lu NBA. I literally made it a few days ago.
Yeah, I remember. Yes. But all right. Again, thank you so much for your time, Jenny, and you have a good one.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you so much. You've been listening to the Baddest Ballers podcast. Please feel free to support whatever you can at patreon.com/baddestballers, and also check out our YouTube channel.